I was 8 months pregnant when my husband Ryan had me exiled to die in the snow. When I woke up alive holding the divorce papers he demanded, I didn't fight. I didn't beg. I took his fake divorce, tore up my pregnancy slip, and walked straight out of the cold shadows of his life and into a future where he could never touch me again. The day I found out I was pregnant, my husband Ryan was at the hospital accompanying his widowed sister-in-law, Chloe, for a prenatal checkup. When he saw me, there wasn't a trace of concern in his expression. Instead, he told me he wanted a divorce. He said Chloe was pregnant, and in order to get the birth permit, they had to go through with the divorce. He assured me it was only a fake divorce and that our relationship was still real. He promised that once the baby was born, we would go to the registry office and remarry. I didn't cry or make a fuss. I nodded and agreed without hesitation because in my previous life, I had used the baby inside me to threaten him with my own life, refusing to agree to the divorce. I managed to keep that marriage certificate, but Chloe ended her life by jumping into the river the very next morning, taking her unborn child with her. 2 lives gone in an instant. Ryan didn't say anything openly, but deep down he believed I was behind it all. When I was 8 months pregnant, he reported me for illegal trading and had me sent to the Northwest for reform through labor. In the dead of winter, both my unborn child and I were tortured to death. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day I found out I was pregnant. The same day Ryan held Chloe and told me he wanted a divorce. This time I took the initiative and signed the divorce papers. Helping Chloe was the right thing to do. Don't worry, I told him, keeping my voice utterly devoid of emotion. I absolutely won't stand in the way. Ryan quickly snatched the divorce papers from my hands. He carefully checked the signature before he believed I had truly agreed. Olivia, once the baby is born, we'll remarry. Just bear with it for now, he said. The smug smile he couldn't quite hide on his lips stood in stark contrast to the fleeting trace of guilt in his eyes. I forced myself to swallow the disgust rising in my stomach and said calmly, Chloe is pregnant. This is a big deal for the family. I'm not that petty. Ryan looked deeply moved when he heard this and tried to reach for my hand. Before he could touch me, Chloe leaned into his arms and said weakly, Ryan, I'm not feeling well. Can you carry me in for the checkup? Ryan instantly grew nervous and scooped her up in his arms. In his eyes, I saw a tenderness I had never known before. In my past life, I always thought that because he was a soldier, he had to suppress his emotions. But ever since my brother-in-law Mark died and my mother-in-law demanded that Ryan supervise and protect Chloe, I realized he had a soft side too. He gave all his military stipends to Chloe and even handed over the fabric coupons I had saved up for 3 years just so she could have a new dress made in the latest style. Back then I fooled myself, thinking he only pitied Chloe for becoming a widow at such a young age. But then Chloe was found to be pregnant, and Ryan brought up divorce. I had resisted with everything I had, thinking I was saving our marriage. It turned out to be the biggest joke of my life. At 8 months pregnant, I was left to freeze to death. The baby inside me died with me, crushed under the weight of betrayal. Right before I closed my eyes, I finally saw things clearly. Ryan's heart had never been mine. He had always loved Chloe. Olivia, I'm caught up with something here. When you have time, can you take these to the political officer? Ryan handed me the divorce papers. It still needs approval, and the sooner we get it done, the sooner we'll have peace of mind. I suppressed the overwhelming wave of regret and took them with a forced smile. All right, I'll take care of the formalities. You go do what you need to do. Ryan let out a sigh of relief, then leaned closer and whispered in my ear. Olivia, please keep this divorce matter quiet. Chloe has always been frail, and if rumors start spreading, I'm afraid she won't be able to handle it. You've always been so understanding. I know you'll see where I'm coming from. This was the first time Ryan had ever praised me, but it was for the sake of another woman, and I refused to let his fake flattery touch me. I calmly nodded, took the divorce papers, and delivered them to the political officer. In 7 days, once the paperwork was finalized, I would be free of Ryan Carter for good. On my way home, I stopped by the community clinic and made an appointment for an abortion. As I walked out, I saw Ryan holding Chloe in his arms as they got into a military jeep. In my past life, even when I had a high fever, Ryan wouldn't drive me to the hospital. claiming the Jeep was an official government vehicle and a ride would be abuse of power. Today, seeing him use that very vehicle to dote on Chloe, the hypocrisy burned through me. His refusal to abuse power only applied to me. Swallowing the bitterness, I walked 20 li, over 6 miles, under the blazing sun, my clothes completely soaked through. When I opened the door, Chloe was lounging on the couch under the fan, eating a popsicle. "Oh, Olivia, you look so hot," she called out gleefully. "If I'd known, I would have told Ryan to bring you back earlier since he was heading this way." Before her voice even faded, Ryan walked in carrying a thick slab of fatty pork. Without so much as a glance at me, he casually shoved the meat into my hands. "Go cook dinner. Chloe wants braised pork." I already picked up the rice. I looked at the meat that had cost me half a month's wages, and said nothing. I just took it into the kitchen, prepared the braised pork, and brought it out. Ryan and Chloe were already sitting at the table, the dishes and chopsticks laid out, except there were none for me. I went straight to the kitchen, grabbed a bowl and chopsticks for myself, and sat down on the sofa. Then I began eating the braised pork by myself, bite after bite. Ryan froze stunned and then snapped at me. "Olivia, what the hell are you doing? How can you just eat by yourself? We haven't even started. How could you be so selfish?" I smiled, my eyes cold. "Selfish? No, Ryan. I'm divorced. You can't fire me, and you certainly can't call me family. You should be more worried about the family you're making. In my past life, my lack of selfishness fed these 2 animals while I withered away. This time, not a single cent, not an ounce of my effort would go to this household." I finished every last piece of that braised pork. Ryan, furious, stomped over to the canteen and returned with 2 dishes, the cheapest vegetable sides they had left, because he'd already used up almost all his food coupons. For once, I ate a meal that made me feel completely satisfied. After washing the dishes, I returned to my room, locked the door behind me, and pulled a small box from under the bed. Inside were all the meat coupons, food coupons, and cash my mother had mailed to me from the capital over the years. These were from the people who truly loved me. Carefully, I packed everything into the hidden inner pocket of my suitcase. Then, I wrote a telegram to my parents, telling them clearly that I had divorced Ryan Carter, and asking them to help me get a letter of recommendation to return home. Just as I finished writing, there was a knock. I opened the door to find Ryan putting on a fake smile. "Olivia, we're all family. Don't you think you went a little too far today? Let's just forget it ever happened, all right? Tomorrow morning, make a couple of boiled eggs for Chloe. She's been looking a little thin lately." I glanced behind him at Chloe, whose cheeks were glowing with health, and laughed. "Sorry, I'm busy. And Ryan, don't forget we're divorced. I'm not part of your family. You need to focus on the family you actually belong to now." The next morning, I sent the telegram and then headed to the black market, where I sold my valuable position as a state-owned shop clerk for 50 yuan. In my past life, Ryan had accused me of illegal trading, and the shop manager eagerly convicted me. This time, I wouldn't give them the chance. When I got home and finished packing, Chloe returned, pride glowing in her eyes. "Olivia, I honestly pity you. Your husband never loved you. Even all those times he slept with you over the years, he was thinking about me." Her words struck like lightning. Every time we were intimate, Ryan would turn off the lights and whisper, "Chloe, Chloe." All those years, I convinced myself he felt something for me. But now, remembering clearly, I realized Ryan never once called me by my name, only hers, with such passion in the dark. The Chloe in his heart was never me. Seeing my stunned silence, she grew smug. "Let me tell you the truth. Mark was always sickly. We all knew this day would come, so of course I was always going to marry Ryan. As for you, you're just a pathetic fool who begged your way in with food and fabric coupons." Her words about Mark's sickness sparked a terrifying realization. Mark had died 3 months ago. Chloe was claiming to be 3.5 months pregnant. The timeline was off. I remembered Ryan's doting, fatherly gaze and my mother-in-law's insistence that Ryan take care of both households. They had been conspiring together for a long time. While I stood there dazed, Chloe caught sight of my hospital slip. "What's this? You're pregnant." I snatched the paper, ready to tell her the pregnancy was already scheduled for termination, when she suddenly grabbed my arm and slammed it into her own belly, her long fingernails digging into my skin. She used the momentum to throw herself to the floor. Help! She's trying to kill a pregnant woman. Ryan's hurried footsteps sounded behind me. He shoved me to the ground without hesitation and rushed to Chloe. Chloe, are you okay? Where does it hurt? Then he turned and glared at me, eyes full of rage. Olivia, are you out of your mind? She's pregnant. How could you lay a hand on her? You're a violent, selfish shrew. I stumbled, hitting my hip hard against the floor. As I curled up in pain, Chloe weakly collapsed into Ryan's arms. The baby, save my baby, Ryan. It hurts so much. I think I'm going to lose it. She cast a triumphant glance at the pool of blood spreading beneath me, but Ryan didn't even see me. He lifted her up and rushed out. Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to you or the baby. The commotion quickly drew a crowd. Only when they saw the trail of my blood beneath me did someone gasp and rush to get a tricycle. Just before I was wheeled into the operating room, I clutched the doctor's arm. Move the procedure up. I want the abortion now. He looked down at the heavy bleeding between my legs, face tightening. Comrade, even if you wanted to keep it now, I don't think it's possible anymore. We need to induce labor immediately. She's losing too much blood. As I was wheeled inside, I closed my eyes. The anesthesia seeped through my veins. A single tear slipped from the corner of my eye. Whatever existed between Ryan Carter and me, it was truly finished now. For the next few days, I lay alone in the cold hospital room. No one came. On the day I was discharged, I saw Ryan's mother, Mrs. Henderson, helping Chloe into an exam room. I quietly followed them. The doctor announced, "The baby's healthy. You can go home." Once they were gone, I slipped inside and glanced at the medical record they'd left. It said Chloe was 2 months and 3 days pregnant. I quickly tore off the part of the medical record with the pregnancy date. Mark had died exactly 3 months ago. I had been right all along. The baby was Ryan's. It was time to settle this debt. On the way home, I picked up a telegram from my parents containing the return letter of introduction I had requested. With this, I could finally go home. As I walked back through the compound, the other wives were already gossiping. She had an affair and got caught by Commander Carter himself. Beat her so badly she bled. So that was their scheme. Twist the story and pin the divorce on me. I pushed open my door. On the table was a red divorce certificate. My luggage was thrown carelessly onto the floor. Ryan Carter had made his final move. "You're already divorced from Ryan," Mrs. Henderson snapped from the sofa. "Take your things and get out." In my past life, this woman had stolen my coupons, and now she thought she could throw me out. I immediately dropped to the floor and burst into loud, dramatic sobs. "Fine, I'll leave. But only after you give back every single coupon and every penny you've eaten and worn from me all these years." Neighbors gathered at the doorway. Mrs. Henderson turned pale with embarrassment. "You slut. You dare ask us for coupons? Shameful." I cried even louder. "Ladies, you be the judge. I earn 30 yuan a month, yet look at me. Skinny as a stick, wearing rags. Why? Because my glorious commander husband gave 50 yuan every month to his widowed sister-in-law." The other wives gasped, staring at the plump Chloe, wearing a brand new Dacron blouse. Mrs. Henderson, visibly panicking, shoved 50 yuan into my hand. "Here. This is your saved money. Take it." I took the money and stuffed it in my pocket. I picked up my luggage and walked out, resting in an abandoned hut nearby. The real show had only just begun. Late that night, I quietly returned. In their rush to kick me out, they had forgotten the house key. I heard moaning and Chloe gasping. "Ryan, be careful of the baby." I swung open the door, flicked on the light, and shouted at the top of my lungs. "Help! Everyone come quick! The commander is having an affair." The neighbors rushed out in their night clothes, seeing Ryan stumbling around shirtless. "Olivia, what do you think you're doing? It's the middle of the night. We're divorced. Even if I was with someone else, that's none of your business." I let out a cold laugh. "You're right. If you were with someone else, I wouldn't care. But if you're with someone I know, then yeah, I do care. Maybe you two were sneaking around before the divorce and tried to pin the cheating label on me instead." Chloe stormed out, trying to appear falsely sweet. "Ryan and I are together. We're planning a wedding soon. You all know Olivia cheated first. Ryan caught her in the act. That's why we divorced. Her shamelessness was my final clue. So, you're saying you two only got together after Ryan and I divorced? I asked slowly. Chloe stiffly nodded. Unlike you, I have morals. I stepped forward and delivered the killing blow. Really? Because the truth is, while your husband's body was barely cold, you were already sleeping with mine. You want to talk morals? I was pregnant with his child when you deliberately tried to harm me. I was faithful. You were just impatient. Chloe's face turned the color of raw liver. You're lying, Olivia. I'll sue you for slander. Ryan growled, trying to sweep the crowd away. Let's all go. There's nothing to see here. I laughed. What are you afraid of, Commander? Could it be that you've done something guilty? Ryan Carter gritted his teeth. I've always acted upright and honorable. Is that so? Then take a good look at this. I pulled the medical record from my pocket and held it high. Pregnant for 2 months and 3 days, but your brother's been dead for 3 full months, Commander Carter. Who's the father of this child? Ryan froze. Mrs. Wong, the political instructor's wife, took the record. It's true. Commander Carter, you have some explaining to do. Chloe rushed forward. She's lying. Don't be fooled. She lunged toward me, but this time, I used her momentum against her and immediately threw myself to the ground, clutching my stomach. Ah, it hurts. Oh my God, it hurts. Just a few days ago, you two pushed me to the ground and forced me to have an abortion. And now you're hitting my stomach again. Chloe's face went pale. No. She fell on her own. But Ryan, looking like a man shattered into pieces, shoved her aside. Olivia, you miscarried. Was the baby mine? Seeing him heartbroken, I sneered. Thanks to you, yes. The child is gone. Just about a month old. Ryan's eyes reddened instantly. I didn't know you were pregnant. Otherwise, I never would have. Chloe grabbed his arm in a panic. Ryan, what do you mean? If she had your child, then what about my baby? Would it be a fatherless bastard? Her words confirmed everything. Ryan shook her off roughly. If it weren't for you begging me after Mark's death to leave you a child, I never would have crossed that line. Chloe screamed and slapped him hard across the face. Now you're blaming me? Ryan Carter, are you even a man? Who was it that couldn't keep his hands off me every night? The military wives drew disgusted glances. As the crowd's outrage grew, Chloe broke down and bit Ryan's arm. The two of them were fighting, accusing each other like a pair of wild dogs. The next morning, several wives accompanied me to the political officer to officially report Ryan Carter and Chloe for violating military marriage regulations. I didn't stay to see the outcome. I immediately went to the station and bought the soonest train ticket back to the capital. I returned home, gathered my packed belongings and left. I hadn't expected to run into Ryan at the train station right before departure. He came rushing in, chasing after me, but I didn't even spare him a glance. I just prayed for the train to leave. Faster, faster, faster. After a few hours of bumpy travel, the train finally pulled into the capital city. Following the streets I remembered from my childhood, I made my way back to the courtyard where I had grown up. Stepping into the familiar place, it felt like I had been reborn. Just as I was soaking in the bittersweet feeling, a familiar voice called out behind me, Olivia, is that you, Olivia? I turned around and saw my mother, now with gray streaks in her hair, standing there. I rushed into her arms and hugged her tightly. In my past life, I couldn't even imagine how devastated she must have been after losing me. Mom, I'm sorry. I was so unfilial, I choked out. She hugged me even tighter. It's enough that you're back. You're back. That's all that matters. When we got home, my father sat solemnly in the living room. So you do remember how to come home? He said gruffly. I thought you'd forgotten your own name. Seeing the redness in his eyes, I ignored his stiff demeanor and rushed forward to hug him. Dad, I whispered. Thank you. From now on, I promise I'll listen and behave. That night, Mom made my favorite dishes. During dinner, Dad asked me about my plans. I nodded immediately. Dad, I want to go with you to the Agricultural Research Institute. The next morning, I followed Dad to report for work. Dad assigned me to be mentored by an older student, Tom Williams. I worked extremely hard, cherishing this opportunity. During the day, I observed plants and research. At night, I buried myself in the Institute's archives. Though the days were busy and exhausting, they left me feeling grounded and fulfilled. 3 months later, I had fully adapted. I hadn't expected that one evening on my way home, I would run into Ryan Carter standing outside the family compound. As soon as he saw me, he rushed over. "Olivia, I've been looking everywhere for you. I finally found you." I glanced at him out of the corner of my eye. Gone was his crisp military uniform. He now wore a faded, worn-out work jacket. I looked at him coldly. "What do you want?" "If I remember correctly, there's nothing between us anymore." Ryan, who used to be so arrogant, now looked humbled. He started to reach for my arm, but hesitated when he noticed the tailored clothes I wore and the prestigious wristwatch on my hand. He awkwardly pulled his hand back and forced a flattering smile. "Olivia, I know you're still mad at me, but back then I really only divorced you to get the birth permit. I swear I've completely cut ties with Chloe now. I'm here today to bring you home." I didn't want to look at him for even one more second. "Ryan Carter, don't disgust me," I said sharply. "A man who sleeps with his widowed sister-in-law and even gets her pregnant? I wouldn't take you back if you were the last man on earth." Without another glance at him, I turned and called out to the guards. "This man is harassing me. Make sure he's never allowed near the compound again." 2 strong guards immediately came over, picked Ryan up like a sack of potatoes and tossed him outside. Unbelievably, the next day, he showed up at the entrance of the Agricultural Research Institute, shouting for me to forgive him. Furious, I stormed over. "Ryan Carter, what the hell are you trying to pull? We're divorced. Stop harassing me." But Ryan refused to leave. A crowd of institute workers gathered to watch. Just then, a military jeep pulled up. I turned and saw it was my father. Before I could say anything, Ryan rushed over and threw himself to the ground, kneeling before him. "Dad, I'm Ryan Carter, your son-in-law." I quickly remembered Mrs. Wong telling me that since the scandal, Ryan had been expelled and discharged. He was now a jobless nobody. He hadn't come for me. He had found out about my father's real identity and was groveling, hoping to marry back into power. Dad gave me a calm, reassuring look. "You're divorced from my daughter. What are you doing here?" Dad asked coldly. Ryan immediately plastered on a pathetic smile. "Sir, there was a misunderstanding. After my brother died, my mother forced me. We promised to remarry after the baby was born. As for the baby Olivia lost, I swear I didn't know she was pregnant. I would have taken better care of her." He lowered his head, looking utterly pitiful. "Father-in-law, I was wrong. I was really wrong." The more he spoke, the more excited he became, completely oblivious to how my father's face went from pale to green, then darkened into a deep black. Ryan had spilled all the disgraceful details himself. "So what you're saying is you're here today to beg us to take Olivia back," Dad said, voice glacial. Ryan immediately lunged forward on his knees, clutching Dad's pants and sobbing. "Father-in-law, I'm here to bring Olivia home. I truly love her. If she refuses to come back with me, I'll give up everything just to be with her." My father harshly shoved him aside. "You beast. Who the hell are you calling father? Trash like you wasn't fit to marry my daughter." Ryan sat there frozen. Then he stammered. "You're really willing to let Olivia be alone forever? She's a divorced woman who's had a miscarriage. What decent man would want her?" My father, furious, kicked him hard enough to knock him flat onto the ground. "You think you're somebody? Let me tell you, there are plenty of outstanding young men lining up to marry my daughter." No sooner had Dad finished speaking than Tom Williams, hearing the commotion, came running over. "Professor son, I like Olivia. If she's willing, I want to marry her." For the sake of utterly crushing Ryan's delusions, I stepped forward and hooked my arm through Tom's. "Dad, this is the man I'm dating now," I said with a dazzling smile. "And I like him very much." My father nodded in satisfaction, then turned to Ryan and said, "See? A university student loves my daughter. And you? What are you compared to him?" Without wasting another second, he called over the guards. They tied Ryan up and physically threw him out. News of Ryan's humiliation spread quickly. From then on, whether it was Ryan, Chloe, or even Mrs. Henderson, every time they walked the streets, they were spat on and cursed at. They had no choice but to pack up and leave town in disgrace. 2 years later, I boarded a train headed to the northwest carrying newly developed wheat seeds for research. Beside me sat Tom. We had gotten married last year. He treated me with such care and gentleness. We soon arrived at the Northwestern Agricultural Research Institute. One summer day while inspecting crops, I unexpectedly ran into Ryan Carter. All the farmers stood neatly in rows, but only one leaned heavily on crutches. I looked closer. He was missing a leg. The once proud and upright Ryan was now an old, broken man with white hair, thin as a skeleton. I wasn't surprised. I had stayed in contact with Mrs. Wong and learned the whole story. Ryan and Chloe had moved to the Northwest for a land reclamation project. Last year, Chloe made a careless mistake that caused Mrs. Henderson to die of carbon monoxide poisoning. Their infant child died with her. Ryan, rushing back in a panic, got into a terrible accident, losing a leg. Olivia, it's been so long. You've changed so much. I almost didn't recognize you, Ryan said, his voice raw. I had changed indeed. My clothes were the latest fashionable designs, and every gesture reflected a confidence and culture he could no longer reach. I simply nodded, uninterested in chatting further. Behind me, I heard the voice of the local field officer calling out, "Professor Sun, thank you so much for visiting and guiding us. It's truly an honor for us." I smiled politely and began following the officer. Ryan Carter stood where he was, murmuring to himself as he stared after my departing figure, forced to witness the massive distance in status. The next day, we were preparing to give a presentation. Just as we were about to begin, a commotion erupted outside. "Olivia's son, get out here, you shameless woman!" A screechy voice howled. "You ruined my family." I walked toward the entrance and was stunned to see Chloe standing there. Her face was haggard and weathered, looking easily 10 years older, a shriveled shadow of her former self. "And what exactly are you accusing me of?" I said calmly. Little Lee from the research office was furious. "That's right. Ever since Professor Sun came to the Northwest, she's either been in the lab or buried in the archives. If you ask me, it's your own husband you can't control, and now you're here to throw a tantrum." Chloe shrieked. "It's all because of you. Ever since you showed up yesterday, he's been treating me like garbage. Called me a wrinkled hag. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have lost my job and ended up living like this." I almost laughed out loud. "And how exactly is that my fault? Maybe you should take responsibility for your own miserable life instead of blaming others." Seeing that I remained calm only enraged Chloe even more. She started shouting again just as a group of city officials who had come to inspect our research progress arrived. Hearing her slander a researcher who had just received a major award, the officials were furious. They immediately called for the security guards to arrest Chloe. Given that she had been lazy and careless in her work and now had stirred up a public scandal, they had a valid excuse to fire her outright. After Chloe was released from custody and learned she had been officially terminated, she couldn't take the blow. Overwhelmed by despair, she threw herself into the river and ended her life. The final act of symbolic irony, dying by her own original threat, was complete. When Ryan Carter received the news, he actually smiled. Finally, he was free of Chloe. He then tried to pivot to agriculture, hoping to chase after my path and catch up to me. But by then, I had already become a nationally renowned agricultural scientist, a professor whose name was known in every corner of the country. Ryan could only read about me in newspapers, learning that I was attending a seminar developing a new breed of wheat. Yet no matter how he tried, he could never catch up to my achievements. Not in this lifetime. I spent the rest of my life committed to advancing agricultural science. When I was 80 on my deathbed, surrounded by my loving family and devoted students, I felt a deep peaceful satisfaction. In a blurry moment of consciousness, I seemed to see my past self, lying on that cold grassland. I smiled and waved at her gently. This time I had not let myself down. As I held my many medals, large and small, one last time, I closed my eyes with contentment. I hadn't wasted a single year of my life on undeserving people. I hadn't lived in vain. Instead, I had found a career I could dedicate myself to, a true love who cherished me, and the most wonderful children anyone could ask for. The end. Thank you for watching. Remember, leaving the wrong people isn't weakness. It's the beginning of your freedom. If you want more stories of strength, hit subscribe.